Reta Boychuk, welcome to Permastoked. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How's it going tonight?
Right on. I'm well. It's great to see you. So I am talking to you. We are in different time zones, correct? Where are you
Yeah,
at?
I'm in Cochrane, Alberta. It's 6 o'clock in the evening here, just after dinner.
Nice, amazing. And I totally got the time wrong. I was on my computer at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and so misread the time change. Oh well. So hey, you and we've met before briefly in Tofino. I was taking my CANRVRSUP instructor course, and you were there with some friends participating in the course as a skills lesson. And I gotta tell you, the pressure was on for me that day. Like, you guys were all like skilled, like probably some flat water instructors. It wasn't, I mean, as a Paddle Canada instructor, normally we're teaching people who've never been on a board before. So it was kind of like, oh shit, like the heat is on a little bit. So anyhow, so that's how we know each other. But Emery told me that if I want to learn about River Sup, you are the person to talk to.
Yeah, he's definitely right. Although, yeah, surfing is a passion, and I do remember that class. It's funny that that's how you perceived me, because I think that that was one of my third times surfing in the ocean, and I actually do find the ocean really, really intimidating. So I found you really supportive, as well as Amber and Emery, that were all there part of the course. So it's really
Oh,
cool to hear
sure.
the other side of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Well, you know
Um,
how it is, right? You're always in your own head evaluating how you perform. So great.
Totally. And I find personally, like, the river, and the more that I explore the river and grow my passion for the river, every time I do have that opportunity to head out to Tofino, I'm much better at river surfing. And I think a lot of that plays to time, balance, and the proprioception skills that are developing just with onboard time.
Awesome. So I know we're going to get into sup surf and what it's all about, or not sup surf, river sup. But in the meantime, I do want to know, how does river sup translate into sup surfing? I mean, essentially, you're standing, you're riding waves, but what is that like?
Well, the translation between whitewater sup and river surfing, I'll be honest, I think I actually honed in the connection in the biggest capacity this past fall when I was in Tofino, and I was starting to catch the grasp of surfing and starting to hunt for bigger waves.
Mm,
And what I noticed, right, as the waves get bigger, getting out past the waves is also more challenging.
mm,
So spending time paddling whitewater and paddling down through haystacks and through big waves gives you a different advantage when it comes to getting out there to
uh,
break out and feel that confidence on your feet and that board transition to the paddle. So you're not, I found that this time I wasn't spending as much time falling off on my way out. So I had more energy to actually catch waves and enjoy the ride. So that was one way that it
mm,
translates. And again, like I said, I think that time on board specifically is a great transition. So whether it's paddling on the flat water, paddling in the waves, paddling on the river, time on board is going to make you better across the sport in all disciplines.
mm-hmm.
And I think the last thing is, on rivers, there's standing waves.
Yeah.
So if the surfing aspect is your weak link when you're in Tofino, so you're catching waves, but as soon as you feel the surf, the feeling of surfing, you're falling off.
Mm,
The river waves allow you an opportunity to extend the amount of time on the wave, to get a longer surf, to become comfortable with the feeling of surfing.
mm,
When you go to the ocean wave, if you know what feeling you're searching for,
mm,
it becomes easy. I find it easier now to find my balance and maintain a ride.
yeah. So I wonder if the translation the other way. So you are a whitewater river supper, and then you went and tried surfing after you've had all this experience. Me, I'm the other way around. I've been surfing and then more recently got into SUP surfing. If I were to just jump into the river and try river SUP for the first time, I have a feeling it would be a pretty humbling experience. Like, even as
Well,
a confident paddler, like it looks like a foreign environment. I mean, there's rocks and all kinds of different stuff.
Well, as a Paddle Canada instructor, right, we have a progression. And I happen to know this really cool instructor that lives in Cochrane, Alberta.
Okay.
Her name might happen to be Reta Boychuk. And I would love to be a part of that experiment with you. So you should come on out, maybe in spring when traveling and stuff opens up a little bit. And let's put that to the test. Let's see if all of your surfing time makes it easy for you to pick up the sport of river SUP and river SUP surfing.
I love it. Consider me in. I don't know if you'll be stop number 1 or stop number 2, because I already have a date with Jacob Kelly Quinlan and Eddie Castillo out on the Kananaskis. So
hey, we could do that in the same day. You could learn to river SUP and we could river SUP you down to the mountain wave to surf with the gang.
Wow, absolutely awesome.
Seriously, cool. That's where I'll take you.
Nice, I'm down. I love it. So Reta, tell us a bit about yourself, the audience, for those listening who don't know who Reta is or what Reta SUPs is. Let's hear a bit of backstory.
Well, I am a prairie girl, really born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta. And without any knowledge actually of that, my family heritage was building rafts and rafting our family supplies down the North Saskatchewan River. Oddly enough, I always had this urge to go to the water, be in the water, sit on the riverbank. But like many people, I would say in Alberta, we grow up learning that the river isn't a place that we should play, that we should stay away, look at it. It's beautiful, but those people that are playing in the river are crazy,
really?
Especially as, prairie farmers in Alberta. The river could be a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And so as I grew up and was seeking different paths, adventure guiding and being outside was always something that I was drawn to. And sort of being stuck in school in Edmonton, I had an opportunity. One of the phys ed courses was an intro to canoeing and kayaking. And it was at the Grant McEwen Pool, and canoe legend Mark Lund was our instructor.
Okay.
I would say that is where this all began. From there, I just had the urge for more paddling, and I started seeking out whitewater kayaking courses. I took programs on the Slocan River, and I progressed and progressed and progressed in the sport of whitewater. And I was seeking out whitewater rafting, and I just wanted to be on the river. At some point in my progression, I got a little bit outside of my foundational base, and I had a bad swim. It scared me pretty bad. And I stayed away from the water again for a little bit until I was actually introduced. A friend took me out stand-up paddleboarding on a lake. And so it wasn't, I think 30 minutes of paddling around. And I realized that this got rid of the fear factor on the river for me. I didn't need to be upside down. I was never scared of being in the river. I was scared of being upside down and the unknown. And I didn't like the burden of putting all my friends out to rescue me when I did swim out of my kayak.
Yeah.
There was a weird pressure I felt with that. And so this stand-up paddleboard tool, although at the time they weren't built for the job and they weren't very stable, but it presented a new opportunity on the river for me. It changed the way that I saw the river. It changed the way that I felt about swimming in the river and being in the water. It allowed me to create a new understanding and a different type of connection. And with that connection, it has inspired me to get back in those other crafts and address those limitations. And it's so cool, like looking at that evolution from, for me, it's 2013 to now, at the opportunities SUP actually presented, and I didn't even realize that growth would happen.
I know you've been running this Reta SUPs. That's your own sort of SUP company but then I noticed it seems like you've had a recent name change. So hoping you could tell us a bit about that, maybe with what RetaSUPs is all about and how sounds like you're morphing and growing and evolving right now.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a great time for evolution with RetaSUPs, or what we formerly called RetaSUPs. So RetaSUPs started as a passion project back in 2016 when I started to take SUP more seriously, and I started competing down in Colorado, traveling, seeking training, and recognizing that like I might have found my thing. I've always been a skier. I've always been competitive. I was a dancer, runner. I've done a lot of sports because I've always been trying to find that one that I was really that clicked for me.
Yeah.
And that was what whitewater SUPs was. And so I decided that being an instructor, essentially since my 16th birthday, when I became a snowboard instructor, that's been my primary career from swimming to everything. Being an instructor, naturally, I wanted to teach SUP. Okay. So river education training for adventures on stand-up paddleboards was born. And also my name, RetaSUPs. So it worked out.
Yeah.
But as I've grown in the community and more people have come in the community, there are more amazing instructors that are growing. And a lot of them are growing with me and under my mentorship and seeking me out to continue their training and progression. And in order to keep growing for myself so I can grow with those students, I need to present an opportunity to keep bringing people in, help those new instructors grow, but also allow myself and my progressive students to grow with me. And so we have evolved into CANRVRSUP, CANRVRSUP, which stands for, in the long term, either Canadian River SUP or I Can River SUP, however you want to look at it. Clever,
very sneaky, right?
Yeah. And we are, for me, it's an opportunity to support those instructors that's showing that they're going above and beyond, the people that are putting in the time to be the safest river paddlers and influence a quality, safe, and thriving, growing community. So CANRVRSUPs is where you'll find me. And because will find me teaching as well as my other instructors. But because of that growth that I had mentioned to you earlier and feeling my confidence to get back in all river crafts, and always being a little bit of a quote unquote sender, I did change my personal Instagram handle this week to Reta Sends. So you will find me sending it in all river crafts on all rivers, and hopefully seeking out some more waterfalls in the future.
Nice, amazing. So just a kind of a weird question about that is, do the followers come along with you, or do you have to start out at 0 when you rename your account?
No, so the RetaSUPs followers and the RetaSUPs account all stays. It just shifts and evolves. And so I hope that I don't lose any followers because I've started showing more goofy vessels and sitting on my bum a little bit more, maybe with different blades. Who knows? Maybe I'll grow a few more. But for me, the whitewater community has always been a whitewater community where all vessels and all vessels are welcome and all crazy wild creatures are welcome. And we all work together to stay safe. So, Reta Sends is just all about being a whitewater girl that wants to be out there playing with her friends, staying safe.
Amazing. Amazing. Love it. So, hey, you mentioned the fact that this RetaSUP started as a passion project. So at that time, was that more of like a side gig, or has instructing been a full-time job for you for a while now?
Yeah. So in 2016, 2017, I would say that RetaSUPs was very much just a side gig. I lived in Nelson, BC, which is a pretty small community and a very transient community. So I focused a lot on teaching mostly to my core friends and getting them out so that they could go paddling with me. There wasn't a lot, the access in a place like Calgary has a lot more access to a variety of people to fill those classes, and more chance for people to try it and say, hey, I might not like it, but some will. And that's how a community grows. And so I didn't really have a choice, but to be a passion project, living there, just with the access and how much, I'll be honest, I wanted to play selfishly out on the rivers. But as I started to see it growing, and I had the idea of traveling with my business, with the trend of van life and all of that, I was like, hey, why can't I travel? And this is back in 2018, sorry.
Okay.
Why can't I travel around to existing paddling communities, existing paddling shops, and show them what whitewater stand-up paddleboarding is about? And so I started off by paddling with, and teaming up with Adventure Paddle School and Columbia River Paddle School in Invermere. And they were some of my first intro to River SUP clinics. And it was awesome. It worked great. They got the Reta SUPs promotion, and people would come because they wanted to meet me and because we were paddling in a new, cool place. And they'd get connected to that business. Teamed up with Aquabatics here locally in Calgary, which is what inspired me to move up to this area. And so teaming up with them, we were able to grow the community and see it grow. And that's part of what's inspiring this evolution is all those little partnerships have put enough people in the community to now make things like guided trips and adventures and advanced level programming something that can actually sell and have enough students to make a feasible operation.
Wow, incredible. That must have just made your day seeing that happen.
Yeah, it's honestly, I joked to my friends sometimes when I am in the heat of, or like last summer when I was in the heat of the busy season, and I just didn't understand quite how I was pulling off all of these things and how it all happened. And they're like, yeah, remember when you were just that dirtbag paddler sleeping in the back of your truck and you told everybody that this is what you did? I think that you like literally said it enough times that it happened. And I was like,
wow,
I remember that.
Yeah. And I remember your van and your dog, actually.
Yeah, totally.
That's right. So that was your home for a while, I take it.
Yeah, I was traveling around until I sort of found a good place, I think, to start a good roots for a community. And I think that is what I found here because of the access to the amazing Kananaskis River, Harvey Passage, Whitewater Park, the Bow River that flows right through my home of Cochrane. So and the access within, 2 to 4 hours of driving, the amazing rivers that could be paddled and the amazing trips that could be had it's amazing. It's a good area for whitewater paddling, I'd say for sure.
Yeah, sounds like you found your niche and a good place to be. You've mentioned safety quite a bit. So, and I know in, stand-up paddleboarding, there are a lot of stand-up paddleboard schools out there, but they're not all of them are, certified through Paddle Canada the way you and I are. So they don't all necessarily hold that same level of safety and education and all those kind of things. So I'm curious, in the river SUP scene, are there some, pretty wild cards out there just sort of winging it, or is it few and far between? Is it more just yourself and a small batch?
So I don't think that there's a ton of instructors out there that are necessarily wild carding it, because like you said, the River SUP instructor community is pretty small. And at this time, there's very few instructor trainers that are actually out there actively practicing, actively training, and actively teaching whitewater SUP. Neil Gilson, I would say, is the biggest, most active person, and he's been my biggest mentor. And I'm sort of paying forward the messages he passed on me as I've now evolved into a river instructor trainer. And so I think from the instructor side of it, at this time, there aren't a lot of people that are just making up their own thing and going along with it from an instructor and school side. In the community, I think, as any sport grows and is new, there's a lot of people that want to take a course so that they can start out right, feel the safety of an instructor, and they're learning all those safety stuff just by coming to a class and getting exposed. Not everyone in a paddling community starts that way. And so if you see someone out there paddling, they may be just doing it the way that they think is best. They might not have taken a course. And I think that we are seeing with the growth in sales of stand-up paddleboards, with the increased visibility of people that are just paddling on the river, whether they are setting a safe example or not, it is presenting more opportunity for maybe people that just don't know enough about it to maybe follow the wrong example because they're trying to follow an example and they're trying to do their best, but they don't know that the example they're following isn't coming from an educated or experienced place.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is the instructors aren't so bad, but there's a lot of people out there who see it and think, wow, that looks like fun. I'm going to try it, and kind of get themselves in trouble. So I'm not going to lie. I was out on a hike a couple of weeks ago here in the town I'm living in now, Owen Sound, and there's a river here called the Sydenham. And I found a spot where this thing started flowing, and it's going pretty good. I even found a spot that if you sort of dug it out, you could make a pretty good standing wave. But it definitely crossed my mind. I'm like, wow, okay, I have like 10 paddle boards. Maybe I could try one of those on here. But, you know, I would obviously want to take a course first. So maybe tell me a little bit about the physicality. Like, one of the things that comes to mind when I saw a river, for example, it was so shallow that I'm thinking this wouldn't work because fins would be, you know, hitting the rocks and stuff. But then I got to thinking, well, I'm not sure even what the fin setup would be on RVRSUP. So I suppose you probably don't want to reveal it all because you want people to come take the course, but maybe tell us a little bit about the actual mechanics of SUP surfing.
You mean stand-up paddleboarding on the river?
There's so many freaking variations. It's crazy. Even you said the wrong thing earlier too.
I probably did.
Yeah. So yes, river supping. Yes, not surfing. River sup. Tell us the mechanics.
I like it. So first off, you're not wrong. So especially at this time of the year, a lot of rivers in Canada are in low flow season, right? Things are iced up, so flows are pretty low. For me, I always like the river to generally have more water than my big 4.5-inch fin. Will I use smaller fins or less fins and change them out? Yes. But if there's not enough water in most places for a 4.5-inch fin, so if, you know, water's not that deep, then the likelihood of you hitting your fin or hitting rocks in the event that you fall is really high. And so I think that that's, you know, it's a tough thing, especially in places like Calgary and Cochrane, where these big, wide rivers that do have a lot of low, shallow spots, they're easily accessible. They are amazing places for stand-up paddleboarding, but being educated about how do we know there's a gravel bar or a shallow spot? Is it deep enough? Should I adjust my fin? Because you're right, the fin can become a hazard as quickly as it can help you. So that is something. And then you're looking to start slow. You're looking for class 1 rivers. Getting educated on the river classification system is a great place to start without even going to a class, doing a little bit of research online.
Do not start in level 5.
Yeah, no. And maybe don't sup it level 5. Like, I haven't seen many people pulling that off yet. So, but you know, I'm looking. But you're right. And so it's just, you know, trying to start slow and find that foundation. That's the biggest thing when it comes to the rivers, and knowing that you're picking the right ones, and ask someone that knows.
And so are the fins, are they kind of bendy fins? Do you go with a sort of plastic type fin rather than glass, or?
Typically, the fins are a flexi style fin. So they're more rubberized. And so that is, if they do hit something, they are going to bend. There is going to be less of an impact and they are going to move around rocks for sure.
Yeah. Because I know Red Paddle, their ride series, has those nice bendy kind of fins that I think would be good. Now, I notice you are always on these Bad Fish boards, and I'm pretty sure you're sponsored by them or you sell for them. Tell us a bit about that brand. I really don't know much about Bad Fish, but I will say your board looks huge. It's like super wide, kind of a pointed nose, not necessarily the setup I was expecting. So,
well, you have to remember that I'm only about 5'3" and 130 pounds. So most paddle boards do look pretty big on me. And you are right. I am a sponsored athlete with Badfish stand-up paddle boards and an ambassador up here in Canada. And I am passionate about Badfish boards because they started off as a whitewater brand. So they are based out of Salida, Colorado. And essentially the creation behind Badfish was one of the owners, Mike Harvey, wanting to surf a wave, but not wanting to figure out how to pop up on the shortboard. And he's just like, I just want to paddle in and get to surfing. And they started off creating these shorter style SUP surfboards that has now grown into an amazing whitewater lineup. And the board that you probably are referring to that looks so big that you see me the most on is the Badfish River Shred. And so that board was designed by Mike Tavares specifically with the goal of whitewater stand-up paddleboarding progression in mind. So you're going to notice in compared to most boards out there, the continual rocker shape from tip to nose is the biggest difference. And that's what makes this board perform on the river. And it surfs any wave, and you can surf it, you know, on its nose, or you can surf it on its tail, because that continual rocker just moves so smoothly through the entire wave feature. Like you can play with it. And the width that you mentioned allows for that stability as we're going through bigger drops and bigger waves. We do, you know, we want that lateral width and stability and a platform to have a good foundation. And so if you're, you know, when you're looking at that river shred or a whitewater paddleboard, you know, I'm looking at other crafts like whitewater dories or whitewater kayaks or whitewater rafts. And the river shred is the one. And the reason I love it so much is because it's the one doing the best to mimic that shape of all whitewater vessels that have been taking on the task of the river for decades and decades.
Wow. Smart. Yeah.
And they also have some rad surfboards. So, you know, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I'll have to really check them out online. I really don't know much. All I know is Badfish is like one of my favorite songs by Sublime. So now
you can try it out when you're here. You can try out all the boards.
I'm down.
Yeah, we'll take you out for a sesh.
Nice. I'm loving this prep. I cannot wait for this freaking COVID stuff, and we can just get on with our business, right? So what is the typical length of a river SUP board?
9.6 is for a downriver board. 9.6 is sort of your go-to maneuverability versus stability sort of compromise. If we're looking, and that's for river running, playing, the most effortless when catching eddies or running bigger stuff. If we're looking at now a downriver racing application or maybe a longer, flatter paddle, you're looking at more of an 11-foot board. Typically a downriver race has an 11-foot cap, and those boards are going to be as narrow as the athlete feels that they can send the river and stay on their feet and paddle and still, you know, compete in the race. So it can be as narrow as you want, but typically 11 feet is, you know, after 11 feet, the maneuverability limitations become very noticeable on the river.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. You don't want to be out there with like a 14-foot board or something.
No. No,
Yeah.
you're totally right. And then surfing typically, 7-6 and a little bit less is where we're going in that surfing sort of world for stand-up paddleboard surfing
So
on the river.
when you say stand-up paddleboard surfing on the river, are you talking about standing wave or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So just like I know you chatted with my friend Jacob Kelly. So the mountain wave here on the Can, just like those guys are getting out and doing their shortboarding, I'll frequently head out on my stand-up paddleboard and surf that wave as well. The cool thing about the stand-up paddleboard is the Kananaskis actually has surfable waves at almost every single feature. So being able to paddle down and surf on my craft means that I don't necessarily have to always wait in the lineup, and I can enjoy multiple surfs and get a warm up before I have the opportunity of hanging out with the crew, because they are also awesome and like they're really good at the waves. So it's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah. So when you're out there on your SUP, are you in a wetsuit or are you in your dry suit? Because all your pictures, you're always in a dry suit. So I'm curious when you're around those guys.
Yeah, totally. It honestly depends. No matter what I'm doing, wetsuit or dry suit, I'm typically I'm always on the river wearing my helmet, my life jacket, and my PPE. Sometimes when I'm surfing specifically, I'll also throw on some knee pads and elbow pads because, like we talked about earlier, shallow water is a real thing. And for me, teaching on the river is my livelihood. So if I bang up my elbow, that means that I might not be able to teach that week. So I do take extra precautions. For me, wetsuit versus dry suit really comes down to which gear is dry for me because I paddle every day. And a lot of the times the dry suit is comfortable. I'm not just parking and playing. I'm working the whole river and stopping to play.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to shortboard and I drop the paddle, which, I'm working on, but it's just trying to squeeze in one more thing. I do prefer the wetsuit, but again, still wearing my helmet and life jacket and quick release leash.
So I've been wearing wetsuits for years, but this year, now that I'm in a winter climate and I'm an avid supper, I got my first dry suit, and oh my God, the first time I wore it, I was freaking dying. I was roasting, like it was extreme. So now it's kind of cooled down, but in the meantime, I thought it was too hot. So I ended up just getting like a separate pair of pants and a coat that are still, water resistant, but yeah, so anyway, just getting into the whole dry suit game, it's definitely a little more expensive than the wetsuit game, but it's kind of nice, at the end of it, if you got to go get groceries or do something, you're not dripping wet, you just get out of that thing and you're moving on.
Totally. I have definitely, I've been known for, sometimes, you're on the move, you got something to do after, maybe it's a hot date. So I'll wear my the cute little outfit only in the summertime when it's warm. I always wear appropriate layers when it's actually cold, but in the summertime, if I just need to stay dry and I have something awesome to do afterwards, I'll wear my outfit, and then continue on my way after my paddle.
Right on. They would never know, except for maybe the profuse amounts of sweat and potentially BO, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't sweat quite as much in my dry suit. My layering system might be, or maybe the water over here is cold because the water in here doesn't warm up as much as it does for you guys. I can very much attest to that.
Okay. Yeah, and we've been having an unusually mild winter. So that day that I wore it, I mean, the air, and if you were just walking around town, I mean, you could have gotten away with like a fleece hoodie or something. So my fit rationale was, if I fall in the water, I'm going to be freezing. But, most of the time you're not falling in the water. So you're up on the board just sweating buckets. And I noticed that you're wearing this dry suit and it looks like it's summertime and everything. So, wow.
But we're also always, for me, when I'm out paddling, a part of, for me and my students is swimming, we were taking swimming out of the picture, right? That dry suit, and I've had many students, and I feel it too, is kind of like this power suit, or this, it gives you the confidence, because, with the wetsuit, you're still getting wet. And I'm not sure what element that takes out of it, but this power dry suit makes swimming a little less bad. And it takes that I don't want to fall into, I don't care how many times I fall in. So even when it's been paddling, and we've been paddling and it's been like -3 and the river is super cold and there's ice on our helmets, I'm dressed okay. And that dry suit, like I'm going to go try and surf that wave or charge that hole, because I'm still going to be warm even if I fall in.
Nice. I will admit, I did feel a bit like an astronaut, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I go with Power Ranger.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you're going to space. Yeah, Power Ranger fighting like a Megazord or something. Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier, Colorado and some training down there and some competition. So let's talk about that. What's that all about?
Yeah, so unfortunately, 2020 got canceled, and I am going to put 2021 on hold, just allowing for things in the universe to shift, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But typically, I get geared up every spring, super excited to head down to Colorado and connect with my Badfish family and compete in different whitewater competitive paddling events, as well as just hanging out, surfing waves and running rivers. And it's something that's inspired me. I hope to actually bring this model and this style of competitions and this circuit up in Canada, especially like I mentioned earlier, as the community grows.
Yeah.
But essentially it's 6 weeks of traveling to different towns, playing in different whitewater parks, and having the most fun you possibly can while pushing my SUP limits and sending it.
And you've won first place in several events. So what's the competition like out there? I mean, it's not every day you meet another river supper.
Well, river stand-up paddleboarding is, I would say it's started in Colorado. It's the home of it. That's where Charlie MacArthur, one of the big founders of RVRSUP, came from. It's the home of Badfish stand-up paddleboards and other leading whitewater brands. And like I said, the home of the Badfish team. And so two of the other really strong athletes out there are Brittany Parker, who is also the girl that I actually paddled with her on the can. And she's the girl that inspired me to get into the sport and start competing. And then, of course, our teammate, Natalie Zollinger, who is a powerhouse. She's frequently on that podium as well. And it's amazing because those guys are out there and they get to paddle those parks and they get to paddle those waves and be in those places all the time. And it's at crazy elevation. And it's such a cool feeling to, and such a kind of unknown feeling to be up here training in the winter, skiing my heart out, searching for water levels to come in and waves to practice on. And it's really cool to go down there and, I excel in the speed and the aggression and the getting excited for SUP cross and downriver. And whenever I go down there, the amazing tricks and how awesome these girls are at surfing always blows me away. So it's something that's in my belly, and I'm working super hard to get better at surfing. So when I am able to go back to Colorado, I feel that I've worked just as hard on that as I have on the other two components.
Incredible. So I'm not a skier, so I never thought I had any reason to go to Colorado. Now I suddenly, my interest is spiked.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. There are river surfing waves for shortboard surfing and paddle surfing all over, and the van lifing and hot springs.
Wow.
And again, just the energy at these whitewater festivals where there's kayak competitions happening and stand-up paddleboard competitions happening. And honestly, for those 6 weeks, it's where I feel like I am the crazy, wild, competitive, happy river dirtbag that I truly am on the inside.
Wow. Let your dirt bag out.
Totally.
Represent. So when you're surfing, I mean, like a surf ride could be 5 seconds long, 20 seconds long. I mean, if you're getting to, a minute or whatever, I mean, you're getting pretty lucky. It's usually a shorter ride, right? So, but with river sup, I mean, you must be able to get the ride of your life once in a while and then just go for kilometers.
Oh yeah. Well, you're not really going anywhere. You're staying on one spot, but at the trail wave, it is so perfect and so glassy. And having lived in Nelson, BC for so long, that was my local wave. And speaking of long rides, really, you can stay on that wave and surf as long as your legs will hold you. I think my longest ride on the trail wave was like 15 minutes. And I was just like, literally, what am I trying to prove here? I'm so tired.
Wow.
There was no one else. I wasn't taking anyone else's ride. My friend was filming me because he thought it was funny. But yeah, it's something that like I said earlier, it allows you that time to get comfortable with the feeling of what it is to surf. What does surfing feel like? Because that is a different feeling in itself. It's one thing to paddle out if you're in the ocean. So paddle out, or in the river, paddle up the eddy. It's another thing to, in the ocean, first you got to find the wave. Find your way into the wave on the river. Then your next thing is you got to catch the wave. So on the ocean, you're trying to paddle and catch it. On the river, you're trying to paddle over an eddy line to get into it.
Okay.
And then that's where it becomes the same.
Wow.
Then you're surfing. So
Nice.
Can you surf now? That's where it's different, but they're so relatable. And with those longer rides on your stand-up paddleboard, if you pick a wave that's at the level for you to learn at, you can start to learn how to move your feet around, how to spin the board and do tricks, how to put your paddle in and do a rudder. But you got to pick the wave that's meeting you so that you actually can surf it and have success. Okay. And then as you get better, progress.
I guess we're always getting crossed over with the sports. I guess I said the wrong thing. So not surfing, but just the regular, like traversing forward down the river on your sup. So whitewater supping, I guess.
Oh, just going paddling.
Yeah, but
going for a run.
Letting the whitewater take you, right? Rather than just going by the motion of your own paddle. I mean, like that sensation of being grabbed by that whitewater and pushed, like, can you just go for like kilometers at a time, or?
Well, when we're paddling down river, we are actively paddling and reading the whitewater and maneuvering and navigating our board to always find the best line or the most playful line or the safest line down the board, where, yes, in theory, you could just go with the current, but the current is probably going to push you into a log jam or a corner. Or if you just go along for the ride, then you're kind of like a tuber, right? You're not in that control aspect. So that's why I think I related the ride to surfing.
Yeah, and
right
I'm glad you made that differentiation, because I actually didn't really realize that. And I come at everything through a surfer's lens. So thank you for actually correcting me. That's educational. So I'm thinking you get up on this board, it's like the wave grabs you and you're gone, right? But you're telling me, no, that's not what it's like. I mean, maybe to a degree, you got some current pushing you, but you're still paddling. You're moving out of the way of obstacles constantly.
Or charging through them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, honestly, we're going to have to do a follow-up, like a post-lesson with Reta, follow-up chat of all the light bulbs after we paddled together.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And, I've talked to some interesting people on the show so far. So I got foiling to try. I got kite surfing to try. Like I'll put it on the list there and try to remember how to do it after anyway. So hey, Badfish, it looked to me like it's an inflatable. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the River Shred and the IRS, the two boards that you probably see me riding the most when you're scrolling through photos and stuff, are inflatable boards, and
Okay.
they have multi-layer technology and reinforcement. And so when you pump them up, they feel hard.
Yeah.
So I spoke earlier of my first SUP experience when it was kind of like being on an inflatable Thermarest or a, bouncy board. These boards are firm. So they're not like the old school SUPs. They feel like a hardboard. They're reacting like a hardboard, and they're performing like a hardboard.
Yeah.
With the ease of the inflatable.
I'm a huge advocate for inflatables. I think they get a really bad rap, but same thing with Red Paddle and their MSL technology. I mean, they have videos of them like running them over with semi trucks or throwing them out of buildings. I think there's a time and place for them. And as a surfer, though, when I first got into SUP, I was like, oh, inflatables, like that's a pool toy, right? Like I need a hardboard. But now, after having hardboards, several hardboards and several inflatables, like the hardboards, they're dinging, they're getting cracked. And I guess the fear with an inflatable is that it's going to pop. But like you're saying, like they're super strong. So I guess when you're going over all those rocks and things, if you had a hardboard, good chance you're going to smack that up. An inflatable might kind of glide over and take some of those rocks better. And I'm sure there are times when a rock has sliced right through a board. Yeah.
Totally. Well, if you think about, yes, SUP is, relatively new in the whole game of it, but let's look at, like I compared it to other whitewater sports before. Whitewater rafting, whitewater rafts have been built out of, pretty durable material.
What am I thinking about? Yeah.
For years. And so we're using the same material to build these SUPs. And so the reality is if you're actually pumping those SUPs up to their firmness, right, they're more likely to withstand those puncture-like activities from rocks and ricochet, right? Yeah, sure. If it's a knife-like thing, it's still gonna stab it. But the reality is raft guides run and drag those rafts and beat them up all the time. So it's the same type of material that's being used in those whitewater stand-up paddleboards.
Gotcha. Right on. I bet this podcast has been a little different for you than others. I'm like, I really want to know the nitty-gritty details about, how do the boards work and the landscape of it all. So thank you. I feel a lot more well-informed. And now I've seen with your new company, CANRVRSUP, and your YouTube presence. So do you have some goals there? Are you working on creating content for people or?
Yeah. So last year, when I was still working mostly as Reta SUPs and COVID hit, and there was this big uncertain time of when am I actually going to get to teach paddleboarding again. And I had all these amazing things lined up. Like I said, I was going to Colorado to compete with my friend and team rider, Kim, from up in Prince George. And I just felt really lonely and disconnected from the paddling community. It was that time when outdoor activity hadn't yet been accepted as okay. And you weren't sure, like, what was the limits? Like, am I putting a stress on emergency services by doing this? And what I do is crazy. So people don't recognize that I'm totally safe and I'm probably going to be okay.
That was a weird time. There's a weird time.
Very weird.
Like,
and so
shame on you for exercising. Yeah.
Which is so opposite of anything in my life. And so I started doing live chats, and whether it was interviewing Norm Han about multi-expeditions, we chatted a little bit about surf racing. We talked with my mentor, Neil Gilson, about learning what, I took a river intro, now what? And so we did that. And then obviously as things started to open up, reality is I got so busy teaching last summer that I needed to be on the water and not online because I needed that time. And slowly in the fall, I was like, hey, I miss all my friends. I want to wrap up that season. And we did. Lockdown measures started to increase. So I started a couple live chats up, the top 12 of 2020 gear questions and stuff like that. And now as a team, CANRVRSUP, we do hope to bring you more live chats, but they aren't going to be on a weekly, every Wednesday basis. We respect that. Just like we have busy lives, everybody has busy lives. And we would rather have fewer opportunities for more meaningful engagement when we can, tune in on this date and we'll all talk and engage and have a discussion versus trying to give them too much and too more. So making quality over quantity and as an opportunity to just share the stoke and get excited for an upcoming season and learn.
I hear you. When the summer comes, you do not want to be stuck behind the computer. That's why I am also like just doing podcasts right and left right now to sort of, it's like storing up for the winter. Instead, we're storing up for the summer.
Yep. Awesome. I agree with that 100%. Totally. So, that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Because like you, for me, there's nothing better than teaching. That's really where, out of everything I'm doing, that's where, I think connecting with people through the podcast is great, but teaching, I mean, it's just nothing better. Like you said, we get to play while we're at work. I mean, it's the best. And like you've kind of cracked the code. You've made this sort of a full-time thing. I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like. So amazing stuff for you. It just is awesome to hear how you went from dirtbag in the back of the van to like, out in Canmore rocking. So did you ever go back to Tofino since we were there surfing again?
Yeah. So, I feel like, was that 2 years ago that we would have been surfing in the fall?
Yeah, October
2018, 19?
It would have been 2019. Not this one that just passed, but only one prior.
Yeah. So I was there this past October as well. Yeah, and it was awesome. The waves are bigger, and I think exactly like we've been talking about this whole show, that crossover totally showed. And for me, I felt like I had, in ocean rides, had the ride of my life up till this point. I do hope that it gets better.
Yeah.
But, I finally caught a wave, like right at the peak. And okay, it's not that big. Like people don't get too crazy visualizing this image, but I'm pretty new here. But I caught it right at the peak and I started riding to the right. And then I had this, they've been trying to teach me to do a turn, and I pointed it straight down the line and then back over to the right. And I was like, boom. And then I saw the wave disappear. Like it was over. And I was like, I did it. I went the whole thing. That was it. And now I'm just chasing that little blip every time I go back.
Yeah. You're stoked already. How much more stoked can you get? It just keeps growing.
Yeah, right. We have this lingo in the group of people that I paddle with and the instructor collective. When you start to clean bigger drops on the river, or you start to catch your first actual surfs, we have this lingo we call overstoke, because what starts to happen is they'll clean the hardest part of the drop, and then they'll like have the best wipeout ever, celebrating because the rapid's not over yet. And so that's known as the overstoke. So every time you eat it, celebrating something really cool, we call that the overstoke.
Love it. The overstoke. Okay. I'll keep my eyes out for that. So
just because you just can't hang on. Like you're so stoked you can't hang on.
But speaking of wipeouts, wipeouts sound like they could get kind of painful for you guys.
I would say that they're only painful if you are paddling in water that is too shallow.
Too shallow.
So,
okay.
yeah, and you're not addressing that properly, right? If I'm on a river that's really awesome and I can stand up 90% of the time, I'm going to address that one shallow section by kneeling down to decrease the likelihood that I'm going to fall in.
Gotcha.
But the reality is you do want to, if you're going to be pushing your limits, if you're going to be sending it, then you want to make sure you're in an environment that, you know, is deep enough. And if you don't feel that it is, load up the pads. No shame in protecting your body. You need that to live.
Okay, right on. All right. So wear some goalie equipment then if you're going in shallow. Nice. Yeah, I'm
totally.
still, I think when I'm imagining it, like, I don't have the full picture yet. So, okay. So maybe you don't get hurt as much. I guess the water is a little deeper. So I don't know really how much more stoked you can get. Sounds like you're in overstoke mode, but I do like to ask people, you know, what else, if you weren't instructing SUP, let's say it never came into your peripheral, what the hell would you be doing with your life? Says your dad.
Well, I have done and tried a lot of different things. You know, when I found SUP, my go-to fallback career had always been snowboarding and skiing instructing. Since I was 16 years old, I've been a passionate ski and snowboard instructor. And I had started my last season in Nelson. I had started competing in the freeride world qualifiers, and yeah, I didn't make the top 10, but I was really killing it and having a ton of fun. Nice. So for me, I think that I would have stuck with my passion of skiing and probably continue to pursue and evolve in skiing. But, you know, I'll be a little honest, the enlightenment of stand-up paddleboarding and the warmth that it can offer in, you know, going to Ecuador or something in the winter months.
Yeah.
That has a little bit of a draw. I don't think I realized that I didn't like the cold as much as I've realized now that I've traveled a bit to some warmer places.
For sure, yeah. And growing up in Alberta, I mean, yeah, I'd be itching to get some tropical climates as well. Amazing. So, okay, so it's not like you were going to be stuck behind a desk or anything anyways. You had your mind set on instructing. So if you weren't instructing SUP, you'd be instructing paddleboarding or who knows what you'd get into. So what other kind of things get you stoked in your life? You know, some people, when they're not supping or surfing, maybe they like to cook or read a book. Like, what else gets you stoked or overstoked?
Well, you're probably going to laugh. And most people are going to laugh because someone posted the other day, they're like, what's your winter activity? And well, in the winter months, I'm actually been taking this advantage of this warm weather to progress my whitewater kayaking skills, like I said. And so I am still drawn to the river. And so I'm progressing my kayaking skills, my OC1 skills. And something else, honestly, if I'm not paddling, I'm eating, sleeping, or training my awesome dog buddy, who is a crazy rescued plot hound. And he definitely keeps me on my toes, but he also knows some pretty cute tricks. So those are the things that I like to do the most. And connecting with the community. So these little things like live chats and podcasts and working with the instructor collective, those are things that are passionate because I see how they all link together. And for me, that community and that vibe and people committed to progression, that's what I like to be surrounded by. Yeah. And, you know, generally what I'm focusing is always trying to grow.
Now, I read an article that you wrote in the Paddling magazine. So obviously you're contributing in other ways to the sport as well. And I remember a few months back, I believe, I searched for them today. I could not find them. I remember you released some Paddle Canada instruction videos on, I'm pretty sure it was like maybe the crossbow or cross draw and maybe a sweep stroke or something.
I did. I sent them to Paddle Canada some instructor videos. Yeah, you're right. I haven't looked for them, but they did send me that they were posted. I'll have to go.
They were posted at one time because I was even contemplating putting them up on my website as sort of a resource. So, but I could not find them today.
Well, I'll reach out to Paddle Canada and see if we can track them down. But quality content and giving people access to resources and good examples is something that I am passionate about, and sharing that knowledge. Yes, I think it's super valuable. And it's my business, right? To get people to sign up and pay for classes. However, I also talked a little bit earlier about those examples that are out there. And if people don't have good examples or don't have access to some type of education or knowledge, they're going to do their best to make up what they see and compile their own way. So I see it as an advantage to the people that want more are going to continue to seek me out as an instructor, but giving enough out there to help those people that might never seek instruction, and that's okay, but it gives them enough to build their example off of.
Yeah, before we wrap up, Reta, is there anything we might have missed, or any message you want to put out there to the folks listening to this today?
No, I just think if, you think river stand-up paddleboarding is cool, you might not have the right perceptions. Maybe that's what we learned in the podcast tonight. So don't be shy to reach out to me, whether it's through CANRVRSUP or Reta Sends. Don't be shy to reach out, ask some questions. We would love to get you out for a lesson. We would love to get you connected with a paddling shop that can get you a lesson in your community. Like I said, I used to travel around and connect with those shops. So if I'm not your connection, reach out and I can help make that connection for you. If you're just looking for some knowledge or some questions, myself and the entire CANRVRSUP team would love to be a resource for you. So just don't be shy. We're a community, and community is what we want to hold true to. So everyone's welcome.
Amazing. Love it. So I'm 38 years old. I'm on the brink. I think I'm still cool, but sometimes I'm starting to lose my edge a little bit. So you've been using this terminology, sends. So is that what the cool kids are saying these days? Like, fill me in.
I don't know if it's what the cool kids are saying these days. But I think it was early on in my skiing career, someone kept saying to me, Reta, you just got to send it. Just send it.
Okay.
Like, just send it. Okay, let's go full send. We're going to send this. And then that sort of started translating into the river. Like, let's go send this river, or send this rapid, or send this waterfall, or send this drop. And so Reta Sends It means that, like, I'm getting out there and I'm going to go do it. I'm going to send it. I'm going to set my sights on something cool, and I'm gonna tackle it and achieve it. So
is it
whether
like
it's
giving
just
it your
me,
all?
Yeah, it's giving it your all. It's, whether it's saying let's get sendy, or we're gonna go sending, I'm gonna send it. Those are all ways that I use it. It might be Reta SUP's lingo, or but I'm gonna keep holding true, and it's gonna stay my lingo for a little bit.
I love it. Keep it going. I want to experiment with using that in a sentence right now. Okay, when I edit this podcast later, I am going to send it. I am going to send the hell out of this podcast. Does that work?
Totally. Typically, send it is used to describe more of an adrenaline-based adventure activity. But I think you could go full send.
I just felt like if I went surfing and I send it, that's too obvious.
Yeah, totally. You can full send for sure. Full send the podcast.
Full send the podcast. All right. If you're listening to this, I hope that you agree that I full sent this we full sent this podcast to you guys.
Yes.
Right on. So Reta, before we go, where can people find you on the World Wide Web?
Nice. So on the World Wide Web, you can find me at CANRVRSUP.com, CANRVRSUP.com. Same CANRVRSUP at on Instagram, on Facebook, and personally, my Instagram is Reta.sends. So if you're looking to find me and see what I'm sending next, come along for the ride.
No more Reta sups. Reta is not supping. Reta is sending.
Yes, but I'm still supping.
Yes. Yeah. This is where it gets confusing for me. Okay, yeah. Right on.
Nice.
So she's supping and she's sending. So, hey, if you are in Alberta or you're looking for your next Canadacation because you can't get out of the country and you got to stay local, head on up to Canmore, Alberta, call up Reta and send it. Get on that river, get on that bad fish and send it.
Except you want to come to Cochrane, Alberta, not Canmore.
Whoops. Let me edit that. Okay, let's try this again. This summer, if you're stuck at home because of COVID or you just want to travel in Canada, go to Canmore, Alberta. No, Cochrane. Go to Cochrane, Alberta. Like Tom Cochrane, the musician. Cochrane, Alberta, which I'm not going to lie, without looking at a map, I can't even envision where that is. I've been, drove through Alberta once. But hey, I heard it's great. Go to Cochrane, Alberta, type in retasends.com or retasups.com or just Google Reta or type in whatever URL she just said a few minutes ago and book yourself a lesson. Get on that bad fish, get on that river, and send it all the way. I think I used it pretty good in that one. And I think I finally had the geography correct.
Oh, that was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be fun editing that one.
Yeah. It'll be like more fun to not edit it. Yeah.
Reta subs. I'm like, no, the business website is the only website I want to I just gave you the personal athlete one for results and stuff. But CANRVRSUP is sort of where I just want to be directing people because that's where they can sign up for stuff.
Okay. You heard it here first. CANRVRSUP.com. I stand corrected. It's CANRVRSUP.com. And now, but hey, the river, if I remember correctly, doesn't have the vowels in it though, does it?
No.
So
we just shortened it up to make it look cool.
So it's CANRVRSUPs.com.
SUP, no S.
Okay. CAN. Okay. CANRVRSUP.com.
Yeah, that's
freaking. I just sent it. Message sent. Email sent. Podcast sent. Nice. I am gonna get on my SUP this weekend and I'm gonna send it.
Totally. Used correctly. Nice.
There we go. And maybe I'll even take some video and send it to you of me sending it.
Perfect. I love it.
I like this sending it. It took me a while to get on with sick, I remember the first time I heard someone say, wow, that's sick. And I was like, whoa, it's gross or it's bad. That just kind of came overnight, that whole sick thing. Now I'm using it all the time, but it takes a little bit to catch up with these things, All right. So nice. Reta, it was sick to have you on this podcast as my guest today. And I cannot wait to have you on as a part 2, because when I have you on as a part 2, that's going to mean that I've already been out and seen you and you took me on a river sup lesson and I'm way more educated. And I have way more to say about it that's much more accurate than I have said on tonight's podcast. And by that time, I should really know where Cochrane, Alberta is. And I'm really going to know how to send it.
Nice. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's this year.
Nice. I do too. Reta, it's been all my pleasure having you on the Permastoked podcast. I gotta say, I think you have such a delightful spirit and energy about you. I think anybody would be fortunate to have a lesson with you. I think it would be super fun. So yeah, I'm down. Can't wait. So in the meantime, I want you to stay stoked and send it.
Yes, let's send it.